A young mother in Manhattan is under arrest tonight. She's charged with the murder of her own daughter. Medical workers say the child's body was in such horrifying condition, they will never, ever be able to forget this case.
Tragedy on this holiday. A mother is under arrest. It is one of the most horrifying cases of child abuse police have ever seen.
In November of 1995, while the entire city was gearing up for the Thanksgiving holiday, a time normally associated with festivities, family, and friends, New Yorkers and the rest of the country had no idea that the holiday would be shared with the savage slaying of a 6-year-old girl, a case that would shock the entire city. Her name was Elisa Izquierdo. Her father tried everything to get her out of the clutches of her abusive mother, but he would pass away the same day he was due to fly her to safety. Elisa's death broke the hearts of anyone brave enough to bear the horrible details, but even then, from behind bars, her husband would defend her and say Elisa was never singled out, never abused, and never violated by her mother.
The stepfather of Elisa Izquierdo talked today to the Channel 11 News at 10. You remember Elisa. She's the 6-year-old girl who was tortured to death, allegedly by her mother. Carlos Lopez defended his wife and family. He blamed others, including the Child Welfare Administration, for the death of Elisa.
But the details shared by neighbors who heard it all, day in and day out, tell a much darker story.
So did you see them a lot, the parents a lot? Or?
Did I see the parents a lot? I would see him take the kids to school in the morning, about 8 o'clock. But this school semester, I didn't see too much of the children or the family. Not much.
As a parent,
what I did, I heard a lot of noises in that apartment. That's what I'm saying. It's not what I saw, but what I used to hear at night.
As a mother, especially, how does it make you feel to know this so?
It's not a very good feeling because I have 3 children and I raised them up in this building and I was very protective over my children. And to actually know that somebody next door could do this to a child, it hurts me. I haven't been sleeping too well since Saturday because I heard noises in that apartment that were not normal. You understand what I'm saying? But there was nothing that I could pinpoint because you couldn't actually see it. I could just hear it. It's 2 different things. And then silence, and then silence. And I said, God, thank God, now I could sleep a little bit. This will go on at least 2 or 3 times a week. I didn't really want my picture in this. I don't want to get him.
I know it's been a lot. Just, were you surprised?
I really don't, because I don't know what kind of people used to go into the house, and I don't want nobody chasing after me and my children.
Were you surprised what you heard when you read the paper?
I wasn't surprised. I knew there was something going wrong. It just hurt me. It hurt me that anybody could do this to a child, to a human being. It hurt. Knowing the way I raised my children up, that I brought them up so protective, and I was aware of every move they made. How could anybody just neglect a child like that and just abuse them like that? It's really beyond me. I'm very thankful.
Ever heard anything, any noises or anything? Okay, delivery business. Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
At night we would go to the bathroom. We hear noises, banging across the next door and screaming. Sometimes the woman would scream, and we hear the kids screaming. I guess whoever's watching right now, if you know something's wrong, or please call anyone and notify them of the situation before a tragedy happens.
While some neighbors were on record as saying that they did nothing, they would go as far as giving advice to others to call cops, because you never know when a situation like this can end in a tragedy.
It's sad to think that you come into the building, you see this little child every day, And it's just sad, you know, it hurts me. It hurts me a lot.
I saw all the kids happy running and bike and play. I never see anything, you know, a stranger for me and to see anything wrong.
She never had any bruises or anything like that?
No, no.
Talk around that.
We can't, you know, it was bad and that's all I can say, you know, yeah.
All right, thanks.
Actually so horrible. I wouldn't want to go into graphic detail, but just to say that she had cigarette burns and scars all over her torso and numerous deep contusions on both sides of her body and her head. The first question you ask as a first responder is, what happened? And the young girl just looked at firefighter 𝘾𝙤𝙥 and said, nothing happened, she's just dead. Nothing wrong with her, she's just dead.
Medical workers say the child's body was in such horrifying condition, they will never, ever be able to forget this case.
29-year-old 𝙁𝙤𝙤𝙀 proclaimed her innocence tonight, but police say she is a brutal killer who systematically tortured her own daughter to death.
Well, in my 22 years of service, this has been the worst case of child abuse that I have ever witnessed.
Officially, 6-year-old Elisa Izquierdo died of child abuse syndrome. Her lifeless, emaciated body, every inch literally covered with bruises, found in the family apartment Tuesday morning by rescue workers responding to a 911 call. Sources say what were at first thought to be cigarette burns turned out to be marks caused by a ring on Lopez's finger, made as she repeatedly punched her frail daughter. The first grader also appears to have been sexually abused in a number of horrifying ways.
The child had been locked up in the room, was not allowed to play with the other children, was fed in the room, and it appeared that she was, beaten also in the room.
Some neighbors say they heard screams and pounding. Police say no 911 calls had ever been made regarding the noise in apartment 20A. Police say Lopez has been lucid and cooperative, insisting her daughter was possessed by evil spirits.
She did make statements regarding the fact that the child had been possessed. That appears to be some of her motives for these abuse.
Lopez's 5 other children, who were all at home at the time, are all fine. They've been turned over to Child Protective Services. Her live-in boyfriend, who has been at Rikers since November 15th, has not been charged, but police say he is still a suspect. At the 7th Precinct on the Lower East Side, J.D. Dapper, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Investigators say Elisa went to school at PS 126. They want to know when she last appeared in class and what the teachers knew about her very troubled life.
29-year-old 𝙁𝙤𝙤𝙀 is charged with murdering her own daughter. Elisa Izquierdo, only 6 years old, died. Firefighters responded to a 911 call to their apartment at the Rutgers housing project on the Lower East Side near the Manhattan Bridge. What they saw inside, they say, they will never forget.
It's actually so horrible. I wouldn't want to go into graphic detail, but just to say that she had cigarette burns and scars all over her torso and numerous deep contusions on both sides of her body and her head.
Her injuries suggest the little girl was abused over a long time. 5 other youngsters, dirty but unharmed, were found crying in the apartment. One of them led the firefighters to Elisa's body.
The first question you ask as a first responder is, what happened? And the young girl just looked at firefighter 𝘾𝙤𝙥 and said, nothing happened, she's just dead. Nothing wrong with her, she's just dead.
In a eerie way, this little girl's tortured life, her age, just 6 years old, even her name, Elisa, brings to mind the notorious case of Lisa Steinberg. Police are also holding the mother's live-in boyfriend for questioning. The remaining children have been turned over to child welfare. Apartment 20A is deadly quiet, except for the echoes of children's cries that this neighbor, for one, will never forget.
Inside the church, the closed casket of 6-year-old Elisa Izquierdo.
The bitter cold, the dreary climate, seemed to reflect the mood outside this old Catholic church in Bushwick, Brooklyn today.
It could have been avoided. The city and everything should have somebody in there watching those kids.
Why, when they hear the kids crying, why right away they didn't call the cops? Let them come in and stop this before this happened to her now.
Inside the church, the closed casket of 6-year-old Elisa Izquierdo, hundreds of mourners and a priest who asked for the mourners' compassion and understanding for Elisa's mother, 𝙁𝙤𝙤𝙀.
She is still one of us. The murderer is still one of us, is still a child of God. There should be no space for vengeance among us.
Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, Lieutenant Governor Betsy McCaughey, and other city officials attended the Mass, offering personal condolences to Elisa's loved ones.
Elisa probably is looking at us gathered here with a confused mind and a guilty heart. Probably she has a forgiving smile for all our neglect, impotence, paralyzing poverty, choked anger, and a silent resignation.
Most of the mourners didn't even personally know Elisa or her family. Still, they sent cards with compassionate messages, like this one, attached to wreaths on the hearse. Many sent stuffed animals. Like 𝙁𝙗𝙁𝙗𝙁's sister, most of Elisa's relatives were too distraught to speak today. Brunilda Perez knew the family well, though. Do you think that this incident will be a lesson to many people?
It's been a lesson to many people, yes. And I hope everybody here understands this.
Elisa was laid to rest at the Cypress Hill Cemetery in Brooklyn.
Una niña apenas de 6 años que no tiene culpa.
She always loved the snow, this family friend said. It snowed last night. Now she is buried. It snowed for her. Child welfare advocates hope that the Elisa Izquierdo tragedy serves a purpose: to increase city intervention in child abuse cases and to motivate the public to report abusive behavior towards children before it's too late. In Brooklyn, Manny Teodoro, UPN 9 News.
If they didn't tell me it was her, I will never know it was Lisa.
They came from all over to 6-year-old Elisa Izquierdo's wake. Her friends, her family, even complete strangers. What they saw made grown men cry and women grasp their kids more tightly.
Yeah, I have 2 kids myself, I'm really hurt.
The family wanted the open casket, even invited the cameras in, but then changed their minds on that, as if seeing would move the city to action.
There are ways to have relief from these confidentiality privileges.
Mayor Giuliani joined the chorus calling for more openness by the Child Welfare Administration when child abuse leads to criminal charges. Elisa's mother, 𝙁𝙗𝙁𝙁 has been charged with murder. Governor Pataki says he would favor the death penalty. He also blasted the confidentiality laws.
That's what we're trying to do, is take down this wall of secrecy.
But Elisa's death is only one of 54 other children's deaths from abuse this year alone. Child Welfare was handling 17 of those cases. Dr. Patricia Morrissey is on a city panel that has reviewed almost 200 child abuse deaths in the last 5 years.
The issue is not confidentiality. The issue really is that there are not enough services to help a woman like this who has a number of children and a number of problems that should be dealt with.
Dr. Morrissey faults budget cuts and worker turnover for what's wrong with child welfare.
The experienced child welfare people in CWA are gone.
The doctor says what's needed to prevent more Elisas are resources, not recriminations.
Thomas sentenced to 15 to life.
As the prosecutor asked the judge to impose the maximum penalty, the defendant, 𝙁𝙗𝙁𝙁 lost control, shaking and sobbing in the crowded courtroom. Judge Alvin Schlesinger showed not 1 ounce of sympathy for the mother who admits she murdered her 6-year-old daughter, Elisa Izquierdo. The judge waited for the emotional outburst to end, then asked Lopez if she had anything to say to the court. After the statement, Lopez really lost it.
I don't know what demons occupy this defendant, or did, or the kind of pain that she must have suffered in the past to bring her to what I consider rage.
Elisa was killed here inside her 19th floor apartment when her mother knocked her head against a concrete wall last November. She laid on the floor for almost 2 days until a neighbor discovered her badly bruised, lifeless body. The day her daughter was found dead, Lopez was arrested for murder. She pled guilty to a lesser charge, and today she was sentenced to 15 years to life.
She got what she deserved.
Some believe Elisa slipped through bureaucratic cracks.
Child welfare, have a better look at, those cases, because they make a lot of mistakes.
Others say the system also failed Lopez.
The thousands of mothers like 𝙁𝙗𝙁𝙁 that are not getting the counsel, they're not getting the care. It involves too much money.
The public donated money for Elisa's funeral mass. People placed stuffed animals and cards on the small white casket. "Elisa, we shall forever miss you," one read. Elisa rests in this Brooklyn cemetery. In court, her mother cried for her, but her tears perhaps came a bit too late.
A child welfare supervisor who handled the botched case of 6-year-old Elisa Izquierdo has been allowed to retire with his pension. Thomas Gorse, a 31-year civil servant, filed his retirement papers last week after city officials determined the case against him was not sufficient to clear civil service hurdles. Little Elisa was found dead in November of 1995, a victim of child abuse. Her mother, 𝙁𝙗𝙞 Lopez, was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 15 years in prison. A caseworker, Adriana Navallo, who handled Elisa's case, has been fired.
The stepfather of Elisa Izquierdo talked today to the Channel 11 News at 10. You remember Elisa. She's the 6-year-old girl who was tortured to death, allegedly by her mother. In an exclusive conversation with Mary Murphy from his jail cell on Rikers Island, Carlos Lopez defended his wife and family. He blamed others, including the Child Welfare Administration, for the death of Elisa. Here's Mary's report.
Carlos Lopez may have the distinction of appearing in Time magazine, a family photo with his wife and 3 young children, but he's featured for all the wrong reasons. From jail, he spoke to us about the life and death of his stepdaughter, Elisa, who's become a national symbol of unspeakably savage child abuse. Lopez's wife is charged with the murder.
She might have spanked it, but, nothing like, they put in,
How did you treat Elisa?
Just like she was my daughter.
There were reports that Elisa was hung in the bathroom from the shower bar.
That's all a lie.
There were reports that your wife sexually abused her with a broom.
The pain and anger in the community could be felt through the broadcasts that aired across the country. I truly hope that their anger was real. I hope they would have handled things differently. But by the time they felt like this, it was far too late.